Thank you very much for this presentation and for being here in such large numbers. Overtourism in Germany, the tourist as a factor, as a disturbing factor. If we look at all this, you can get the impression that it might be possible that our guests, our tourists, are really a nuisance factor. Last year, the press already has been talking a lot about this subject, that in these destinations, tourists are no longer that welcome in certain destinations, especially Venice, Amsterdam, Barcelona. Also Berlin was one of these cities with overtourism. And we, as a marketing agency specialized in destinations, we asked ourselves, what about the other German destinations? What about rural areas in Germany? Is overtourism also a problem there? If so, what are the repercussions of overtourism in these regions? Because, of course, we want to give some useful information and tools to our clients as a destination manager. And talk about also maybe problems that might arise in the context of overtourism in certain destinations. And then we noticed that there are many different opinions concerning the subject. So we started with a survey. We asked German tourism operators, tourism actors, what they would have to say concerning overtourism. Because only if we know what the problems are and who is confronted with these problems, we can start to develop any countermeasures. It was not meant to be a representative survey or a research analysis. It was more to get a general impression of the atmosphere here in Germany and where people see the problem and what we can do against arising problems. And during the next 15-20 minutes, I would like to talk about the highlights of our survey. Unfortunately, we will not have time to talk about it in detail. If you want to have the results in detail, please give me your business card or write an email and I will send you the results. During the second part, we will talk about the consequences of this survey and the answers to the questions we asked. Let's start with the survey. Who did we ask? Who answered? 150 people participated, and more than half of these people were working for marketing organizations of the German federal states in German cities or other regions, and the other 50% were consulting companies, people working in restaurants or in hotels. And as we wanted to see also what is the situation in rural areas in Germany, we tried to distinguish between urban regions and rural cities. Rural including cities up to 50,000 inhabitants. And over 50,000 it would be urban. And then there were regions where we had this grey area which is a mixture of both. I will start with the most impressive and clear answer. 98% said, yes, Germany is also facing problems of overtourism. Well, that doesn't bring us any further. From these 98%, we cannot deduce any answers or solutions. First of all, we need to know what is overtourism, what do you associate with overtourism, and what problems are linked to overtourism. And here you see the answers in priorities. They could also, first of all, take a choice, but then also add something. So the third most important problems are a breakdown in the quality of life, traffic problems, and then also overcrowding of people at just one space at one moment in time. And then we wanted to know which of these problems also occur in Germany. This is the same here. In green, the same representation. The weighting is a little bit different concerning the problems here in Germany. It's more or less the same. Some people did not answer, but not really greater changes concerning this weighting of the problems. But then when we compared what people say when they live in towns and people when they live in rural areas, there we could see that there was a difference. For example, concerning the quality of life, lesser quality of life. People in cities really see that they have a loss of quality of life, whereas in the rural areas it was the problem that was mostly cited, quoted, was price increases. Overcrowding. It was interesting to see that the federal state marketing organization do not think that overcrowding is such a big problem as compared to all the other people answering. So these federal offices in the federal states for tourism have a different perception of this problem. Then we asked, where do we see any problems in Germany? And of course, the three major answers were the same, so always at tourist hotspots in the old cities of towns here in Germany and in the metropolis. So these were questions asked for Germany in general, but now we wanted also to see what about your own destinations. We asked the participants of this survey. And 2/3 of participants said that their region also knows overtourism, the problem of overtourism. The answers were rather foreseeable: overcrowding in certain cities, traffic problems. It was interesting to make a comparison between people coming from tourist organizations and from other tourist segments. The perception is not the same. Those who work for a tourist organization see less problems, for example, in this loss of quality of life. They have a positive approach concerning people, concerning also too many people maybe, and a positive point of view, positive view of people getting to their place. When we asked, do you think that your destination is also suffering from these problems, there were no differences between rural and urban areas. Looking at the urban areas and the problems in the urban areas, we saw that for them, the most important problem was overcrowding, too many people. If we looked at answers from the rural regions, then the answers were often more traffic, less respectfulness with people dealing with each other. Our region is only like for staging holidays or something like that. And in the rural areas, these problems are clearly attributed to an increase in tourism. Then we try to find out, we know now who is concerned with this problem, and now the next question would be, what can we do against it? What would be an efficient answer to these problems? And 50% said that we have to try to steer the crowds, the masses of tourists, but also focus on the region, on the domestic market, trying to explain the positive effects of tourism to the people living in rural areas and make them participate. Foster participation. These would be measures one of the top 3 measures that concern the people living in the areas. Next question, who is already doing something? We know about the problems, we know that we can do something, and half of the people working for destination management organizations said, yes, we already have taken some measures to fight against overtourism. Fight against tourism so that, as to avoid a switch in the perception of tourism in certain areas by the population. What has been done? The results were rather surprising and interesting ones. The top 3 measures, first of all, fostering positive perception of tourism in the regions, but also marketing for certain target groups, and a shift or prolongation of holiday times in certain regions. Off-season marketing. So what would be the most efficient measures? 2 of these top answers that we had before, we don't find them again in these answers, what already has been done. So why do they do something what they have not identified as being the right answer at the beginning? I do not want to judge now whether it was a good or a bad measure, but we saw that there is a difference between the planning and the practice, and we will see during the next weeks why it is so. And then we also wanted to talk to those who don't do anything for the moment. Half of the people in the DMOs said that they have not yet taken any measures. And we saw that 80% of all the participants who have not yet taken any measures against overtourism said it is because we do not have this problem of overcrowding or overtourism in our region yet. And probably people think that things would problems will simply disappear, or the problem of overtourism will disappear when our region, our destination, is no longer attractive for certain people. So guests come to a city, to a region, and then they see that there's too many people, and then in the end there will be less people. Well, that's a problem. That's a possibility. But we wanted to ask, what can we do to avoid headlines like these? What can we do to avoid insatisfaction in the population and this feeling of being overrun by tourists? What can we do in time? What can do those who not yet have these problems, or at least not bigger problems over tourism? What can we do to avoid that things get worse, and that these guests come and like to come and are not seen as a nuisance by the population? So we try to develop measures on the basis of our survey. What can we tell our customers for the future? And then there were 3 different layers or levels where we have to act. But first of all, it is very important to act in a holistic manner on 3 different levels. Destinations have to be active so as to these measures can really be efficient and be effectful. In the next part of my presentation, I will talk about these measures now and show you how we can support our customers also in the digital world. First level, communication, outer communication. So with your possible guests, with people getting into contact, multipliers, contact with your guests. So it's a targeted marketing. I want to talk to those that I would like to get to my destination, but I could also market the product in a different way. I could maybe market sites that are not so close to my hotspots, other destinations, so as to have a better distribution. If it is always one and the same site, of course people would like to come there. It's no surprise. Then, second point, regulations and values. But it is not a list of rules given to anybody checking in at a hotel. You can do that in a more subtle way. Think of a rural region and sites in this rural region. You might want to have different routes how you can get to this site, but do the guests already know that there are different ways to get to a certain place? Could they take another route so that people living there can still get to work on time? Did I tell my tourists what public transport possibilities they have? So it's a question of communication, and how can we communicate what we expect of our guests also for these guests. If the guests do not know about it, they cannot change their behavior. Second layer. Product development, of course, is always linked to this first layer. If I am to recommend a certain parking lot to my guests, I need these parking space, of course. I can not only say that we are environmentally friendly and respectful, but then I have to have garbage bins as well in a sufficient number. So apart from these very hands-on features, it is also necessary to look at the destination itself and the offer. What are we going to market? And do we need maybe also to create alternatives to this marketing product? For example, bad weather alternatives. We have some tour highlights in our region, but then it's raining. And at that moment, all the tourists go to just one museum and it's completely overcrowded, no parking space. What can I do to create alternative offers to distribute in a better way the tourist attractions? Can have a broader offer and a more moderate number of tourists at a certain hotspot. And this brings me to this third level, communication with the organization itself, inner communication. Whatever we do in our communication outside, we first of all have to develop it inside our organization. We need a concept as DMO, and we can only be successful with this concept if our citizen, people carrying the society, are going along and want to do something for this destination. As a destination management organization, I can always say, for example, no, our destination is not a party destination, it's a cultural destination. But if then my inhabitants say, come here because this is a wonderful party destination, then it will always be this image of party destination. So what I want to be to the outside has to be carried by all and communicated by all the stakeholders. So it's a question of values, rules, communicating also inside. But if you expect the population, the citizens, to participate, to shape the destination, I have to tell them also what is their advantage. Do all the participants in the region know about cultural offers, and do they know that it is only able to finance them, to fund them, if people from outside get there? And that I cannot broaden my offer if there is no demand for my offer. Do these people know that we need public transport, and public transport is only fundable if there are people using them? And this is more likely if people from outside come there. So these are small things where you have to have a close look and ask whether the people who live in the region, who have nothing to do with tourism, are really aware of these problems. But then you have also to listen to people. Perception of problems can vary a lot. And whoever you ask, is it somebody living in rural areas, in an urban area, somebody who's working in destination marketing organization, or a waiter in a restaurant? And then if you also ask citizens living in the region, you get even more different answers. So all these have to be part of my concept, my planning. I have to listen to them and derive a concept after having listened to all these different voices, so that people living there can identify with the region and with tourism. And this means that in the end, the guest will still be a person welcome in the region and will be positively welcomed by people living there. This is what we want as destination marketer. We would like that people are friendly with tourists getting to their region, and because this would be a unique experience then to these. I've just very briefly talked about some of the measures, and other things have been discussed in detail at this convention. We have many participants, many stakeholders. We have to listen to all these people. We have to take account of their attitude, of their opinion, and that's a lot of work to do, because their interests are not always the same. There are different objectives, different preoccupations. So it's a long time mission. But there are possibilities to make all these people participate, to take them along. Think of somebody working at the reception in a hotel. I have to tell him maybe that he could recommend something that is not just the hotspot to get a better distribution of guests. But then people in cafes, in hotels, need to know that as well, because otherwise they would always recommend this one site. People working in a cafe, if somebody comes from abroad, do they know that maybe people do not give they do not leave any money in the end, or any tip? Or do the DMOs know what they want to market, what they have to market? Or is it always the same site that they are recommending? So information transfer is necessary, and we can do that on different levels. By our presence, real events, not only digital, real events where we can get to know somebody, discuss, ask questions, know what people are worried about, and so on. So there the direct contact is very important and should be part of your concept. If we want to reach the inhabitants of a region, you should also use regional and local networks. If we only communicate in a one-directional way, we will not succeed. The citizens, the inhabitants, have to be seen as a target group. So there again, we need an interlocutor, and we have to know what multipliers we have in the region, in the destination, to get the message across. We are here at e-travel stage. The last point, e-learning, online platforms. It's a very efficient means, very efficient tool to get across information 24/7, to make it available 24/7. This is a good possibility to bundle the different parameters of our concept and to take into account the different interests, concepts in defining for the different target groups exactly their content. We have all the possibility to give better advice with certifications, for example, and making sure that people know what they should know when they do their jobs. It's not always easy because there's a high degree of fluctuation within employees in the hotel and restaurant industry, but we have to give them information. Another last message: be active. Try to communicate at different levels, try to get into contact with different target groups. And if you want to do that, it is a long-term investment. You need a sustainable concept, not only for the next year, it is more for the next 10 years. And you have to start now, because otherwise the problems will already be there. And it is always important to start quickly. And in doing so, we, Tourcomm, would like to support you. In the region, we would like to come together with you. We would like to develop communication measures for you, for your region or for you particularly, and in e-learning platforms, for example. We are here to help you. Should you be interested in a certain concept or approach, we would very much like to present you our ideas. 15 seconds for questions now. I don't know, maybe afterwards? Or some questions, please. Well, I will be in the lounge afterwards. So if you want to get there, please come and see me there, so we can discuss this subject a little bit longer. Thank you very much.